morning, everybody. It is Monday, October 26th, and that means it's time for another episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia. I'm one of your co-hosts, Cecilia Sepp. I am the founder and principal of Rogue Tulips Nonprofit Management Consulting, and we work with nonprofits of all types. I'm here with my co-host and friend, Agnes Amos Coleman. Let me throw it over to Agnes to say hello and introduce herself.
Thank you, Cecilia. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global audience, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Agnes Amos Coleman. I'm an author and a consultant. Over to you, Cecilia.
Great, thanks, Agnes. And today we are so excited. We have Charity Quick as our guest. She is the executive director of the Biomedical Engineering Society. And she's going to share with us her experiences and observations and predictions regarding governance of nonprofit organizations post-COVID-19. Charity is one of those unique individuals who was hired, onboarded, and started managing her organization completely virtually. So welcome, Charity.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys having me. It was a surprise to hear from Agnes because Agnes and I worked together years ago, but Agnes is a wonderful person and I really appreciate you inviting me to speak to you. As you pointed out, Cecilia, the getting hired during COVID was interesting. So going through the whole process of interviewing and speaking remotely and not getting that whole body language feedback that you get in interviews is a difficult thing. But the most important thing, I think, was that hiring during COVID, you look for different people. You don't necessarily hire the same people you might have done pre-COVID because it's a different skill set. How can you relate to people and get your personality across and get your skills and attributes across in this setting? It's a little bit more different and difficult. So I think the process was different. But the important thing here is they hired me. I have now been with the organization going on 100 days. And we just wrapped up our big event every year. So every year we have an annual meeting with over 5,000 people. This year we managed virtually to have an event with 3,118 people, which is a feat in and of itself. But we had to reimagine the entire event. So events has been hugely impacted by COVID. And our organization in general makes a considerable amount of its revenue on our meetings. Right. Most of our revenue is in meetings, so we have to reimagine the entire organization. So those conversations are happening now. So when you reference governance, we just had a board meeting last Thursday. We have last Friday, and we have another board meeting coming up on Thursday. And a large portion of that is strategic planning, not only in relation to what we would talk about if COVID hadn't happened, but now what is our organization, reimagining our entire organization because the world is different and will be different. And not just because COVID has turned things from virtual working to regular. Before you would have a plan if you wanted to go virtual. There's a lot of associations that are virtual, but a lot of them hadn't had the conversations yet. A lot of them were against it. Didn't feel like they could have the control that they had before, managing people, managing processes, security, all of that. And now everybody had to do it. So brick and mortar offices, that's going to continue, in my opinion, to decline. You can see empty office buildings everywhere. Businesses have to look at the way they interact with customers and clients completely differently, and that includes members. So our conversation and at the board and at the staff level is about talking and working with our members in a different way that adds value, that can be done. Engagement is very, very important. Member engagement is super important, and they have to get that from you virtually. So what does that look like? Do you have more virtual meetings? Do you have more webinars? Do you have podcasts? Do you create more virtual meetings? Do you downsize your in-person meetings? What does it look like? And I can't answer that yet because we haven't made those decisions. But it also, what does your bylaws look like? If your bylaws say you have to do things a certain way that's not supported by anything that's electronic, even electronic voting, how is things supported? So we're looking at our bylaws, we're looking at our mission and our vision. we're having important conversations about things like diversity, equity, and inclusiveness because of what's going on in the society of America right now. And we're biomedical engineers. So all of those things are super important to us. And we're being intentional about what we do. And that has to be in the strategy. If you're not strategic about those things and make them important, they won't just happen. So we're having a lot of conversations. Governance-wise, we said 2 board meetings a year. We're increasing that. We are increasing it to quarterly and then even then some because I'm a new executive director. So we're having board meetings much more frequently of a shorter duration to increase that engagement. We're looking at all of our policies and procedures. We're looking at our IT infrastructure because now it's highlighted more than ever that what your virtual presence is to your members is very important, and we need to make some investments and what those investments are. So it's lots of important conversations that, and it's not necessarily, this isn't even post-COVID. I think this is COVID. And then there's more changes that are going to happen post-COVID. And if your organization does not respond appropriately, they're not going to survive it because just look at your retail organizations all over the country. They're closing down, restaurants are closing. It's impacted people in such a horrendous way. But it's not really that different for associations. They have to respond appropriately also.
Well, and you're touching on a lot of points that came out in the report we just released last month. Rogue Tulis released a report. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. Nonprofit organizations respond to COVID-19, and all of these things are on everybody's mind, especially governance issues. And what we found in the report that was really interesting was they find that governance is actually better because there's more focus on decision making and I think less focus on, I guess, just some of the things that go around board meetings, because, in the past in person, you have the board breakfast and the board dinner and all these things, but now it's focused on governing and decision making. There's a lot of talk about the events, like you said, because so many organizations are relying on events. But one of the other things, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Charity, is one of the other things we've been discussing with people is that the member experience has always been virtual. We weren't consciously thinking of it that way. So like your members are not coming to the office every day. In the past, they got an email or a phone call or maybe mailed them a letter, paper, something hard copy. So there's always been that way, but we never thought of it as virtual. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, but also you made a really good point about reimagining the organization and the impact of technology and not thinking out the technology or the fact that maybe you weren't prepared for a virtual shift. Agnes and I met working together at a completely virtual organization, and I still had to, I was the CEO there, and I still had to come in and fix the infrastructure in a lot of ways. We had to completely revamp operations in order to deliver the services and the benefits that the members were looking for. So that's like kind of a big multi-part question. So that's kind of like, what are your thoughts about the virtual membership experience first, and then we'll kind of tackle the other ones.
So when I answered the question, I was also framing it in association to the Biomedical Engineering Society, because the #1 membership value item for them is our annual meeting. Okay. So the majority of our membership is students. So these students are in programs in universities around the country and the world, and they associate the value of their membership to that in-person annual meeting. So for us, even though the relationship membership wise is virtual, the value they place on it is an in-person meeting. So for us, this is a very big value change. Wow. So in the between times of these different meetings, and we have some special interest groups that also have conferences or meetings associated with them, and those became virtual as well. But the value to our membership, the value proposition now is different. So there wasn't an in-person annual meeting, but we did have a virtual one with over 3,000 attendees, which is terrific. And many of them found value. And there was also people who couldn't come in the past because of the expense associated with a in-person meeting, that they were able to attend virtually. But then how do we extend for a year a relationship? What other things do we give them? And that is the conversation we're having now. And in order to do that, you have to have the necessary platforms, and we don't. So when I talk about our IT infrastructure, I mean everything from our AMS, which needs replaced, to our website, to our content management system, an engagement platform, all of those pieces. You know, increasing our social media presence, many things. And so, you know, that's a huge thing to tackle, and it's expensive. So you come to the board in a year where your annual meeting is down about 40% in attendance, where your membership is down also because people join to go to the annual meeting. Well, they didn't do that as much. So membership numbers are down for us. Our annual meeting numbers are down for us. So it's going to be a really tough year anyway. You have a new executive director who's coming in and saying, you need to invest in infrastructure. And so how do we get there? Which is one of the conversations we're going to have on Thursday. But I said, it's not an if, it's a when. And if you don't respond, you're getting into critical, you're going to go critical, because we're not going to be responsive to the marketplace. And then we're in a much worse situation.
And then I'd like to hear Agnes's thoughts on this, because Agnes is very insightful.
Well, I was actually very interested in some of the risk element to this, because this is all new and you're reshaping the direction and the vision of your organization. And I wonder whether you're thinking along the lines of the risk that it presents, and a lot of how then do you manage those risks as you move along this new dynamics of, you know, reshaping this organization and this governance structure?
Yeah, there is a lot of risks, and part of that is I don't know exactly, Agnes, what the plan looks like. And once I get into the plan, that's where I will show the risks, and what's the probability of those risks. As you know, when we worked for the Institute of Internal Auditors, learned a lot about risk there.
Absolutely.
So I think we go into looking, you know, what is the risk, and then there's also the risk of not doing anything. Because exactly. I think the risk to sit and be stagnant is colossal. And I think that there's evidence of that all over businesses that didn't change or didn't change quickly enough. And some organizations are hard to shift. They're very big. And I've worked at some of those huge organizations, and it's hard to move the ship. Our organization, what's good and bad about it is we at one point had significantly more staff. We're down to 8 staff right now. And for a $4 million association, that's very small. I mean, I managed a $3 million organization in Morgantown, and we had 16 staff. So we are very, very short staffed. We don't have all of the talent that we need. And so it's very difficult to do things there. So there's a lot of investment that has to be made, but right. And the risk, you know, the risk that goes along with that is significant, but then you also have to stage it and make decisions about doing things and not doing things. So I think the IT portion of this is going to be in stages and probably over a couple of years, and what makes the most sense for us. And then also investment in staff.
Do you get the sense that your board is harmonized in moving forward with this new plan and new vision? Because you definitely need them to be harmonized and be on the same page as you are to get this job done. So I'm kind of curious, because there's a lot going on here, and I'm curious to find out whether they're harmonized in the process.
Well, they're not going to hear it till Friday. So I can tell you that going through the interview process, I will share this with you, because you do a lot of research of the organization, and you look at everything, and they gave me access to, unfettered access. And one of the things I said during the interview is you have to make a significant investment in your IT. Your website is outdated. You don't have good vehicles for engagement. I don't know much about your AMS, but in reports I'm reading, it looks like we've got some serious limitations. So they knew that when they hired me, that I made that comment. So I'm assuming at least those on the search committee, and the majority, including the new incoming president and the outgoing president, the two of them are definitely on board. So I will find out about the other 21 members of the board on Friday.
That's brilliant. And believe it or not, we are almost at the end of our allotted time. 15 minutes goes so fast, and this is a great conversation. And like I mentioned earlier, Charity, you are experiencing all of the same things many other groups are experiencing, which we always like to say to people, don't worry, you're not alone. You're not the only one doing this. And we would love to have you back to see how things came out after your board meeting on Friday. But Charity, what is the one thing that you have learned or observed, or what's the one thought you'd like the audience to take away today?
I think the one thought is don't be afraid to change. And also don't be afraid to have blue sky sessions with not only your staff, but with your leadership, and throw information on a board and look at it, because sometimes the craziest ideas are the best ideas. And just don't be afraid to, these are scary times, and use them as an opportunity. Don't just use them as a crutch to not take action. Use it as an opportunity to take action and to reimagine what you could be. And not necessarily think about small change, think about huge change. Think about if you could reimagine your organization in the present. A lot of organizations were started 150, 75 years ago. And they were started in a time that looks completely different than this time. So I would look to how you would build it from today and go forward with new, exciting ideas. Great
thought. And Agnes, any closing observations?
No, just want to appreciate Charity for joining us. It's been very enlightening, some of the thoughts you've shared. And if our audience wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
Well, you can reach me at my BMES email, which is charity, CHARITY @BMES.org. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone would have.
It's great, because I know there's probably other executive directors in your position that would love to share ideas or maybe sob stories, because sometimes we also all need to have somebody who understands. So we have to go rogue for now, everyone. Charity, thanks again for joining us. Great conversation. And we will be back next week with another episode. In the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips, please visit our website, roguetulips.com, and check out our new resources page, where we share all sorts of resources and information for the nonprofit community at no fee. And we are also big supporters of the 501c League, which is a virtual membership group for everyone in the nonprofit community and the people who love them. You can check out the league at the501cleague.net. Check out their ethics courses, especially if you're in that CAE renewal period, because you need that ethics credit, folks. So, well, thanks again, Charity, Agnes. Always great to see you, my friend, and we will be back next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.